What up, BIDSTITCH gang? We are here with a vintage legend, a massive figure within the vintage space, Jon, owner, founder, Grand Street local, and we're here to kind of chat with him, talk about his experience within vintage, and just talk anything vintage with our homie here. What's up, Jon?
Yo, what's up? How you doing?
Pretty good.
Welcome. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah. So how long have you guys been around?
We've had this location for a little over 5 years now.
Awesome. Yeah. And where did the birth of the idea start?
Oh man, it's definitely been like a long time coming.
Really?
Yeah, man. It's I guess it's a way further back story. It's like ever since I was younger, I've been into this type of stuff and things that were old and cool and different and unique and things that you just things that you couldn't find walking into like your local mall. You know, I always wanted to find that type of stuff you'd see in cool old movies. And I think it just always stuck with me. And through the progression of everything I've done in my life, it all kind of chimed in and kind of like gave me more info and insight and knowledge about certain things. And so it's all like kind of grown ever since I was younger, really.
Awesome. Yeah. So you were into vintage prior to getting the shop. I guess, how did you start, right? Before the shop even came about?
For sure. You know, I'd say I've probably been collecting for a really long time, maybe since like, you know, as young as like third, fourth grade. I remember kind of going to like those first thrifts, you know, finding spots like that and kind of finding out those certain items that like really made me feel a certain way that I needed and wanted to take home. And from kind of that world into like the sneaker world, it kind of all like contributed. And as I got older, I went to school for like interior design. I learned a lot about like textiles and a lot of just like general design stuff. And then shortly after graduating, I moved up to New York, and my brother started a menswear brand actually and asked me to kind of help out with design and photography and kind of curating some stuff. And I became the brand manager for them, and we did that for about 8 years. So during that process with the design and everything else, there's a lot of sourcing that goes into it. And I always found so many incredible vintage pieces that we always loved. And so as much as I really enjoyed making new stuff for the brand Feldtraeger, I really always wanted to find those unique vintage things. So I think that kind of always stuck with me as wanting to do something in that space more.
That's cool. So you started with the more formal brand before going into vintage, but we were talking during the break and you mentioned now you're kind of flipping things on its head and you're working with a lot of these more established brands. Tell me how that experience has been like, and maybe talk about some of the brands you've had the chance to work with.
Yeah, for sure. So I think one of the reasons that a lot of different brands and stuff like that are starting to come to us more is because of our curation in the shop and kind of the effort and the detail that we bring into the shop, and then also kind of the history and the knowledge that we have behind a lot of these items, right? So a lot of the pieces really go from being like a 40s World War II deck jacket and not just like a random old green jacket at a thrift store. You know, for something like this that's like 80 or 85 years old and still has those original components. I mean, it's a lot of the story behind it that like really gets people to kind of perk up their ears and kind of open their eyes a little larger and know that like this isn't just a normal second-hand type of space. This is a very fine curated type of vintage space that like we start to see more as like a vintage archive in times. And so I think for those reasons, we have a lot of those bigger brands that essentially they want to put out that vintage looking item and that vintage feeling item. And to be honest, a lot of these brands, like they don't really know where to start. And even when they have somebody to come and do this, a lot of times like that person isn't someone who's, you know, super knowledgeable or interested in this range or this field. So like they might not really know. And so I've had some other buddies recently start as like vintage creative directors at brands.
Really?
And when they step into these roles, like what they tell me back is just that like some of these brands, like they really don't know what they're doing until they have kind of people like us that are just more familiar and more, you know, educated in this world who can step in and again, go from being like, yeah, that's a green jacket to like, it's jungle cloth. It's lined with alpaca. There's like a early like talon zip on here. And like, so a lot of those details, like these companies want to be able to like remake stuff the right way. And so they're starting to come to more people like me.
So Jon, then that kind of leads me to another question, which is like something I hear within the space a lot. A lot of folks are like, yo, I don't like the fact that these more established brands are reaching out to independent vendors like yourselves and in their opinion, kind of stealing the very essence, the DNA of what they work so hard to source, only to recreate it in mass. Maybe like tell me some of your thoughts there.
It is a cool and it is an interesting question, and it like, you know, I feel a couple different ways about it,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Because like, you know, as much as I really love like the proper vintage and the real deal, like some of those aren't always wearable, some of those aren't always clean, some of those aren't always, you know, maybe what you want it to be. And so sometimes some of these newer brands that make really good remakes, like sometimes it's hard to refuse some of those, but it gets tricky in my head when it's like they're pretty much even the same price, or maybe even the new one
Really?
is priced higher, but the value isn't really there because it's, you know, it's like something newer is
manufactured,
usually,
yeah.
it's usually going to go down pretty quick after that season, and there's a bunch of them, as opposed to like things like this are only going to continue to go up every year and every season. So I kind of feel both ways about it, to be honest. You know, I am happy that the people and the brands that do want to do this are trying to do it the right way. Because, you know, it's like you don't want to go and buy like a 60s replica jacket that like, you know, is really maybe a late 70s one, or, you know, just like you want the right information for like what you're buying.
There's a right and wrong way to do it for sure. And I guess you could definitely see, you know, you could appreciate the fact that, hey, at least they're willing to put the effort in and be like, hey, I want to see the original source behind kind of this inspiration that I was looking for.
Yeah. And sometimes it's nice to see the vintage original and the newer piece and kind of talk about, you know, some of those pieces that maybe they carried over, or maybe some of the things that they improved or changed for nowadays, you know?
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things we used to do for Feldtrigger too, is like, you know, we'd find those favorite pieces, we're like, oh, but I wish it had these pockets, or I wish they were shaped a little more like this, or open or angled so it was easier to do this while you're doing this, or so it was big enough to throw a 40 in there, or like just different shit where, you know, like these like earlier like Buco like D-pocket leather jackets, like those were for guns back in the day, and like, and the smaller little snap pockets on the front were like for handcuffs, and these were like police leather jackets back in the day. So some of those details like make sense to keep, and then some of them like maybe make sense to edit for a more functional.
They may not need the gun pocket, or maybe they do.
You know, pending where you're at. You know, if you're at the bins, yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about something else now. One thing I really like about your shop is, I guess, the breadth, the diversity of curation you have here. You've got items that are kind of, I don't want to say lower tier, but it definitely lends itself to, you know, that college student looking for style at an affordable price. Sure. But you've also got a couple items here that are stupid numbers, $10,000, $15,000. Like maybe talk to me a little bit about what your thought process is when it comes to your curation and kind of like the overall look aesthetic you're going for in the shop.
For sure. I think the quick answer is like I just wanted a room full of cool stuff. I wanted a space that looked like an incredibly curated showroom, or maybe even home closet, but that just had everything that you would hope to find when you go thrifting, right? So it's like we try to really hit all of like those menswear classics that a lot of them are found through military and workwear pieces, and then we love like a lot of the nostalgia stuff that we grew up on, from, you know, the TV and music to like the early skate stuff to like just stuff we remember having, or, you know, wanting to have as a kid. And, you know, when we source, I source at every place I can, high or low pricing, you know, because I feel like I've gotten to a point recently where for me, it's like not about the price, it's about the item, you know, and like the item like justifies the price. And even if you want the piece to be $100 and it's $300, like that piece is probably going to be $500 next year, so you better hurry up and grab it. Yeah. And so for me, it's always been a range of like all the classics through the decades. And then because you're always looking and picking, like maybe you find like an awesome old like big head sports shirt that like doesn't have to be a crazy price, you know what I mean? But it's cool and you want to bring it in. And then other times you really go out there and you really try to source really special stuff that you don't really find on other selling platforms. And then again, it's like, you know, it turns up into more like a piece of rare art that like when someone really wants it, you know, it's like someone really wants it. And if not, it'll be hanging out and probably more money next time you come by if we still have it.
Super cool you mentioned that. Like, it's got me thinking, you know, you're out here in Brooklyn, right? And it's a beautiful area, beautiful spot, beautiful location. You've kind of got your finger on the pulse as to like what trends are happening, what you see in the future in terms of pricing, in terms of what people are going to be wearing, given the fact that you are with the community out here, number one, and number two, you also have that background working with more established brands and seeing what they're buying. Anything in particular that you could kind of tell our audience, the BIDSTITCH audience, about like what's on the come up right now?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's like there's definitely things that come in waves a little bit, right? So as like crazy as, some of the pop culture or movie or like rap tees got like during the pandemic, like some of those prices settled a little bit. But then there's some within there that like that stay strong and that maybe even continue to boom because it's just such a rare item. But you have to realize that like a lot of nostalgia driven stuff like kind of goes by the decades or maybe every few years at a time, where like maybe if you're a few years younger or older than me, you're going to have different shows or cartoons or bands that like meant more to you that like I don't even know or care about. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's one of the things I love in the store is like, it's so personal what people are getting in here. And someone might, be like, this isn't even worth $10 to me. And the same item, someone's willing to pay $1,000 because it's like, that's that item, And so like the personal angle I feel like is there. So it's like, you kind of see like as big as like some of like the Disney stuff was, it kind of settled. And it's like, all right, some of the people that we all grew up with Disney, it's like we've kind of, grown out of that a little bit. Yeah. But then there's also stuff that I feel like kind of like older Harley stuff and like a lot of older band tees that are like always just classic cool and continue to go up. Like the more faded and worn and like more interesting that singular piece is, I feel like it has a stronger future, But I don't know, it's just a bit of a range. I mean, it's like you obviously see like the bigger pants, kind of like some of like the tighter shirts, and it's a bit of a, it's like, because we get all different people. We get people that are here that are like really fashion people, and then you get other people that are just like passing by, and they're trying to find something that feels safe for them. But within the people that like have a little more in them to do, it's like you see them taking chances on like more of those like kind of fun 70s pieces or more flared type of stuff, or, more old-timey even. Like most people wouldn't even think to buy a World War II button-down, but it's like, dude, it's such a classic piece that like, it's like brands like J. Crew and all the classics and, even the, Capitals are like, everyone's doing like the herringbone twill, the old HBT World War II shirt. So, I mean, a lot of this stuff is like, I don't know, there's a wide range, Yeah. Definitely a wide range.
So one thing that we're noticing, and this is just very much anecdotally, I have like no analytics to back this, but I'm seeing a huge transition from people that got into the vintage space, started out with like more, I'd say mainstream graphic tees, and then have kind of converted or slowly transitioned into like true vintage. Are you kind of seeing that? Like what's your read on the situation?
For sure.
Really?
Yeah, like 100%.
Okay, I'm glad you said yes. Now, what do you attribute that to?
I think it's like the natural progression, right? Where it's like we've seen it so much over the past 5 years, and even brands like RRL and Capital like kind of lend to this bridge in a sense of maybe the sneaker kid or the high-end fashion kid that's now like, wait, let me take another look at like more of the heritage-y type of like workwear stuff and some of the old military stuff. So I think that stuff like that is really bridging the gap where, again, like we're talking about like the old souvenir Sukajan jackets where guys come in and they're like, oh, that's sick. Like, yeah, I just saw like Capital did one of those. And I'm like, yes, like they're inspired off of these. So it's like kind of like, again, kind of telling the story a little bit and showing them some of these pieces. And then you see it kind of click for them and kind of go full circle. And even brands like Supreme, like they do some really like heritage-y type of pieces sometimes that like, maybe people who, are shopping Supreme wouldn't normally do, but because they did it, they're trying it. And the next thing you know, they're like discovering brands like Shot and like classic leather jackets and through collabs of brands too. And so I think that like brands like Capital and like RRL are really doing that. But even again, like the Supreme, like they collab with a brand like Shot or some of these other, Vanson. And it's like, then these guys take these deeper dives into these brands and like find out more about them. And that's when you like feel more comfortable and more drive to like go find or purchase those type of items, right? So it's like, that's why even like after the Last Dance Bulls documentary, like all the Bulls and George stuff went up like 3 or 4 times. Like after all these music documentaries, people are like, feeling more of a connection to those things and then coming in and like looking for those pieces. And, it's like everyone jokes in here. It's like, are you going to get that shirt? Like you literally have like the boyfriend be like, name 3 Metallica songs, and like, and so some of that,
fall for that a little bit too.
No, it's like some of that I understand, but like in all honesty, like there's sometimes that I still see like a really cool fucking graphic tee band shirt that like I'm not really sure what the band is, but I'll buy the shirt and then I'll go home and I'll listen to the music, and then if I like it or don't like it, I'll price it higher or lower, and I'll be like, this shit is sick. It's like it can hang out in the shop, I don't care. And the other times I'm like, who fucking even cares? Like this is $20, like get it out there. And so, there's some stuff that it's cool, there's comps and it is what it is, but it's like we try to find the shit that you can't find other spots. So it's like some of it could be $20 or $200, but
you find the stuff that a lot of people can't find, right? And so I'm not asking you to go into details as to your sourcing methods or whatever. Everyone's got their own secret sauce.
I'll tell you. I don't care.
But I mean,
They're not there anymore, you know?
Okay, so I guess I'm curious, like, what do you say to a lot of folks who kind of have a lot of these sourcing challenges, whether it's, getting into the rag house or getting access to wherever it is that they feel there's this gold mine of vintage? Like, I guess, what would you have to respond to someone that's kind of experiencing those same challenges, having some of those issues?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's like no bullshit about it. It's tough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like most of it like starts from everyone just like going to thrift stores and trying to find stuff. And I feel like one of the earlier dudes when I first moved up to New York around like 15 years ago that I met that was just like really like just finding cool shit and crushing it. His name's Pat. He goes by Jersey Pat, I think, if that's still his, whatever. But he was like, yeah, he's like, I hit like seven or eight spots. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? He's like, I hit like 7 or 8 spots, like pretty much 6 or 7 days a week. And I was just like, it literally was the first time I ever heard anything like that, and it blew my mind, you know? Because I feel like growing up, you're like, even you're hanging out with homies, you're like, yo, you want to like fucking hit whatever, see if we can go find something. You like maybe go to 1, 2, maybe 3 places, you know what I mean? But to think that someone's just like hitting the fucking pavement, like shop after shop after shop all day, as long as they're like, he's up at 6 a.m., he's there when they open, he's going, he's like making those relationships. It like kind of blew my mind. And like, I kind of used to do that in the sneaker world, but I was like, yeah, that's like, you know. And so I think like a quick answer is like, you gotta fucking put the time, effort, and hustle, and you gotta fucking work. Like, people come in and think like all this shit's just like sitting at a thrift store for us, like waiting to go in and pick it. Like, people always come here like, oh, I could find this for like $7. I'm like, cool, if you can find it for $7, I will buy all of the ones you have, you know? But so it's like, it's a range, but like even us, like like I mentioned before, like we pick at like all places, you know? So like, I'll hit thrifts, I'll hit places on my fucking block. Like, I'll hit Goodwill, I'll hit what comes around goes around, I'll do highs, I'll do lows, I'm on the street, I'm like literally tapping on people's shoulders trying to buy their jackets in the fucking street. We buy in the shop. It's like a lot of word of mouth, right? So even here, it's like there's so many people that have so much cool shit around Brooklyn that like you can literally tap into random people walking down the street and be like, yo, would you sell that? Do you have other shit you want to sell? Like, and the people that think you're crazy, so like, you know, it's like when you go to like more middle America spots and you're like trying to get like an old jacket off some like old guy and he's like, you want this dirty old jacket? And you know, and you gotta like explain to him like, I don't just want your old sweaty jacket for a weird reason. Like, I have a shop and I like whatever. But it's literally, it's like wherever you can find it, you know? Like, it's hard to get into rag houses. Even if you can, they have like really high minimums. And so it's like, it's not easy. But with everyone asking me in the shop, like one of my new answers I've been using for probably like the past year, sounds kind of crazy, but my answer is when people go, yo, where do you find all this shit? I say, I buy it the first time I see it. And if you like, and if you like let that sink in for a sec, you're like, you know, but you're like, I feel like that answer makes the most sense, right? So instead of seeing something at a shop or at a flea market or at a vintage show and go, fuck, that's sick. And then you're like, didn't get it, whatever reason, it's sold already or it's too expensive or whatever. And then next thing you know, you're fucking thinking about it. A year or two goes by, you're still trying to find that piece and you're still whatever.
I've been there.
And so that happened with me with the Type 2 denim jackets.
Really?
And when we first opened the shop, I remember even like the pricey vintage stores had them for like $1,500. And I was like, that's a lot, you know, that's kind of crazy. And then even in the 5 years we've been here, now I'm trying to source them for the shop and people are quoting me 3, 4, 5K for them. And so like even an item like that, like at the Faded show, like I found this one and Rodrigo had it, Crazy Loco. Or sorry, no, I got some great stuff from him. But Drew actually had it.
Oh yeah.
And Drew and Jesse were there. And
shout out to Drew.
Yeah, shout out to the boys. And I've known them for probably like close to 15 years. I met them through Inspiration LA when I was doing Feldtrigger with my brother back in the day. So I've known them for a while too. But so he had the jacket. I'm like, fucking see it, instantly fall in love with it. Just like dark wash, good fucking size. And I'm like, so what's up? Like, what do you think? You know, and they gave me a number and I was like, fuck, you know, like I wish it was less, I whatever.
But
and like a little bit of back and forth, some trades, some cash, whatever. And I got the jacket and it was a lot of money. But even over here, like I've already almost sold it for a couple $1,000 more than I paid for it. So it's like, again, like a lot of people don't want to pay that $3K, but at the same time, like that's easily going to be $5K pretty soon. And if you don't get it for that, then you're going to get it for that. And then you're never going to get it. And then it's going to be, so it's like a weird like thing to say, but I feel like when I say it, it like makes sense. Yeah. And now I see things and like, again, even if it's like a lot of fucking money, I know how hard some of those things are to find again, that I'm like, dude, I'm just gonna take it.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, it's like I feel like I could always like probably fucking let it go what I got it for, but like these are all things that like that are like incredible investment pieces to like bring into the shop, you know, and like and you can't sell it unless you have it on the wall, so you got to get it on the wall.
Oh yeah, maybe okay. This will be good. Go into a little bit of the Jordans, because like you have insane collection curation of 85s, of Jordan 1s. Like maybe talk a little bit about how you got into them, and kind of you were telling me a little bit a little story earlier about you initially sourcing at a certain price, selling for a little bit more, and thinking that you were doing great, only for 2 years down the line you to realize, oh wow, I was screwing myself for a ton of money.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's literally like a double-edged sword sometimes. Like my wife and I joke that we could like turn the lights off and come back in 2 years and just like double all the prices. And so, like there's some stuff we're like quicker to try to sell and, try to hook it up a little more when we need to. And then other stuff I'm like, dude, I don't even want to fucking sell that. Like there's stuff in here that's just here for display and for vibe and to tell the story, that like we'll even get crazy offers on. I'm like, I appreciate it. And I'll keep that as a mental note, but like I'm really like the items mean more to me than the prices for certain things, But for sneaker stuff, like as I kind of mentioned before, like I kind of think like one of the first pairs was like 4th or 5th grade. It's like the new year and the new school year. My mom takes me to the mall to get one fucking pair, and I remember it was the first time I like fell in love with like 2 pairs of shoes, and I was like so torn at it. And it was like a pair of like Air Force Ones. I literally still remember like both pairs. Like a pair of white Air Force Ones, like a navy blue liner and like navy blue. It just like had like cool details that were a little different. And then a pair of like fucking Flight 89s, just all white with a gum midsole. I was just like, these are fucking sick.
So you're stuck with the tough decision.
And yeah, I was stuck with a super tough decision. And luckily enough, my granny was there, and she's like, "Oh, don't worry, sweetie, I'll get you a pair too." and that was the first time that like I got both of those. But I realized that like, and this is in like 4th or 5th grade. And it was an early thing that I realized that like, okay, like I want more than like what is a reasonable thing to get for a new fucking one pair of shoes for a new fucking year. Like I'm gonna need to figure out how I'm gonna be able to get more shoes, And so ever since I was younger, I was always like, I don't know, a little like, I wouldn't say tight, but like different with money, where it's like if you had like $50 for the fucking week, I was like pocketing 30 of that and then like trying to just spend the 20 so I could keep saving money. And so I started like a sneaker hustle when I was earlier on. Like I always wanted something that was like cool and different. And I think I was telling Casey recently, but like one time I was at the airport and I was super fucking young. It was like early 90s. I was like maybe like 7 or 8 or something. And I'm walking through the airport, it's crazy busy. And I like remember I like just saw fucking Home Alone, so I was like, don't lose my fucking parents, but like, but there was just busy. I'm like looking around, and this dude walks by me, and he's wearing a pair of original like 85s low Michigan Dunks. Never ever seen them before in my life in person. I had to be under 10, But I just knew like it was such a crazy pair, and it's so weird because it's like one of those memories you'll just like remember forever. And it was just this fucking cool dude running through the fucking airport, and I was just like, fuck, and it made me realize that like other locations and other countries release different colorways for shoes that
Interesting. So, you came to these realizations as a young kid, man.
As a young kid, And so when I kind of got into middle school and like the internet became more of a thing, I like started finding out about like some Japanese like sneaker stores and Japanese like websites and like different stuff overseas in Asia and different parts that I could get. And like it was such a crazy risk at first, but then I was like, I got a few crazy pairs. And like Atmos, which was like used to be like one of my favorite brands, was doing all these Nike collabs, and like the very like besides the first pair of Air Force Ones, the first pair like real Air Force Ones like I bought for myself was like a pair of Atmos Air Force Ones in like 6th grade. They're like $170, And it was like crazy, but like the first day I wore them, like a couple homies at school were like, "What the fuck are those? Like, how do I get those?" And the next thing I know, I'm taking screenshots of what I'm seeing on these Japanese websites, showing them to people at school. They're circling shit. I'm going and fucking ordering people like these sneakers from fucking Asia and like middle school and like dishing these out, and like slowly just kind of went from that to like more of the streetwear and skate stuff. But 2 brands you love are doing a collab. You're like, fuck, I have to get that. Like I love Stussy growing up because I grew up in South Florida. So I used to kind of like skate and surf growing up. And so that was just like a brand that was always like prevalent in my life. And so it's like, damn, they're doing a Nike collab. I got to get that. Damn, Stussy's doing a Bape collab. We got to get that. And so all this stuff. So it's just like always more, more just something a little more rare and different that's like you don't always see out there. So that was kind of like the early start to me, like kind of fucking hustling and like finding my own style and my own way that like is now such like a, it seems like so normal now to wear like a vintage jacket and like a cool old band tee or, you know, old skate stuff. But like videos of me skating when I'm like 6 years old, my shirt's like down to my fucking knees. It like probably wouldn't even fit me nowadays. And I'm like, that's the type of shit that I'm like on the hunt to try to find again. So it's like, again, it's like the whole wave of nostalgia just like goes full circle.
One thing that I want to talk to you about, and this is kind of taking things in another direction, is you know, the fact that we hear there's a lot of young people entering into the vintage space right now, and they're kind of stuck between two choices, or seemingly two choices. Number one, hey, let's start sourcing items. Let's start listing it on our virtual shop, whatever platform that might be. Hopefully it's BIDSTITCH. Or let's go about it the brick and mortar route. And let's actually have a physical presence. And I think you're seeing quite a few more young people deciding to go completely virtual. I'm curious to get your thoughts on there, because you started your shop about 5 years ago, yet I feel like you've been around forever. Maybe talk a little bit about that decision, what went into it, and what you would advise, you know, future vintage store owners and you know what to do.
For sure. I will definitely say it's not for everybody. It's super cool being your own boss, but you need to make sure you're like kicking yourself in the ass and staying on top of stuff. But like the freedom to do what you want makes it the fact that it's not, like what my dad says, not a job. You know, he used to always say, as long as you do what you enjoy, you never work a day in your life. And so again, like this definitely isn't for everybody, you know what I mean? And like there's ups and downs with like having your own business and being a new business. But for me, I think even coming from like having our brand and having stores before, even from the start with the other brand, like we wanted a store to like really like have our presence, right? To have like someone really step into our space and just like kind of get it from like the look, the vibe, the colors, the lighting, the smell, the music, like how you're greeted, how like what's going on in there, like the whole thing. It's just like it can't be matched on a website or online, or the storytelling, or the, hey, you're interested in this, like let me actually like throw you in the fitting room, you could try it on, and let me actually bring you some things to build like a really cool fucking outfit that you maybe wouldn't have even gotten before, and explain all these different things. And so for me, it's like it's so much more of like a showroom at times, like an archive, like a space where someone can buy, sell, trade, which again is such like a huge aspect of our business, and such a cool addition where it was, again, like taking notes from like what I used to do when I was a kid. Saw a pair of $1,000 shoes on the wall. Those are sick. Can't pay $1,000. Here's a few shoes that I bought for the low that sell for the high. Let's do the fucking trade. And so again, like I try to incorporate things that I appreciated when I was younger. And like even today, like someone came in, wanted a great Harley shirt we had that was around like $300. Traded in a cool Beetle shirt, a pair of like silver tab denim, and paid the difference. And he was happy because he only had to pay $50 and he traded in some old shit. And so for us too, it's like sometimes the trades work out even better than the sales, you know, or sometimes I'm going to get something that I absolutely love that this guy's totally over, you know, so even buying in the shop and having the shop as like a home base for that is such a huge addition. But I think at the end of the day, it just like, it really like establishes you more, you know, it's hard to like get people to your website, you know what I mean? I mean, even here, some days are tough, but it's like, but you have the walk-by traffic, and you have like the local traffic, and you have the tourism traffic, and you have people that are just honestly like looking for cool stuff. So even us being on Instagram and having other photos like that, like circulating, like people like see a few pictures in the shop and they're like, where is that? Like, where do they have an original 80s Stussy Friends and Family varsity next to a World War II deck jacket, next to original Jordan 1s from 85, next to a bunch of affordable, really cool fucking t-shirts, like, and crazy ones too, if that's what you're looking for. So
sounds to me like you're kind of saying like the establishment of a physical location might be harder, but the payoff is greater, right? And it seems like you're kind of a testament to that in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, you got to pay rent and bills, and you know, and you gotta have people helping you, and so it's a lot that goes into it, and that's why it's like it's definitely not for everyone, you know what I mean? But me and my life and my wife and my kids and our lifestyle, it's like to be able to have what we have and be able to take off 2 weeks when we want to go travel or go on a family vacation. It's like there's just like stuff like that doesn't really, you know, like normal jobs aren't always like that. And so I feel like for me, even like there's more than just even this and what's in this room for like the reasoning that I do it as well. And now with like the progression of the vintage world and our shop and our business and the different partnerships that we're working on, you know, it's like a whole nother thing too, where, you know, it's like we've had people approach us about, you know, partnering with us and opening more shops and opening in Manhattan and different places in Miami and different things. And some of that stuff sounds awesome at times. You're like, yeah, we're gonna have a bunch of shops, but it's like, fuck, like I don't know if I actually do want to do that. Or, you know, it's like, so it's again, it's like trying to figure out that balance. But the shop is like, it's like such a home base and such a strong part of the brand. And so I feel like it does make you more official off the bat, you know? Yeah. If you're willing to do that instead of, because it's tough. It's like, oh, just because you like thrifted today and put some shit up on eBay, you think we're kind of like the same person. It's like, that's not really the same thing, you know? But.
Yeah, there's tiers to it, I think. And I think that kind of what you're doing is a little bit, like I said, more challenging, but it kind of puts you in that tier 1 type of vintage seller. Okay, so, you know, you've been here in Brooklyn for quite a while. You've been in the game for even longer. Maybe tell us a little bit about some of the craziest experiences you've had, either in the shop or as a vintage dealer, and enlighten our audience as to what are some of the happenings in your life.
So there's a wild range, you know what I mean? Like sometimes these are good wild experiences and sometimes they're weird and bad wild experiences.
We want to hear about the weird and bad ones.
Yeah, of course. Do you want to hear about the biker one or the skinhead?
I wish this was live. I'd love to take a vote right now. Give us. Let's start with biker.
Okay, so back in the day for our brand Feldtrigger, me and my brother used to like kind of ride and build Harleys too, and kind of like did a lot of stuff in that world and worked with those events and magazines and different stuff like that. So it was something we were like a little more involved in. Okay. And one of the things in like the motorcycle world is they used to think everyone in the earlier days was like, oh, they're all like fucking bad people, but they're like, no, really only like 1% of like the motorcycle world is like are bad people are doing X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And so they essentially have like these patches on their vest that is like, say, 1%er. It's like a diamond, like the number 1 and like a percenter. Oh, okay. And so if you ever see someone that's got a 1%er patch, just maybe show them a little extra respect. And so we made this pin for our old brand back in the day, and it said 69%er, just as like a joke, right? Yeah, okay. You know, cool little diamond pin, enamel pin. And so one of our buddies, that's no longer one of our buddies, was wearing the pin out at like a bar, and apparently a couple guys came and kind of threw him against the wall and like shook him up a little bit, and they were like, what the fuck are you doing wearing this pin? We're in a motorcycle club called the 69ers, and the fact that you would like make this and blah, 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 like all this shit. And apparently they were like, where'd you get it? He told them where. And,
oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, he gave you up easy.
Yeah, he fucking gave me up real easy, right? And so he literally calls me or texts me later that day, and he's like, yo, I'm really sorry. Like, this is what happened. They said they were coming to see you. And I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And so I call my brother, who I ran the brand with at the time, who was like in LA because we were doing production out there. And he's like, bro, you're good. Like, they don't care about us. Like, you're fine. I was like, easy for you to say. You're in fucking across the country, right? And so a few days goes by, and I'm closing up the shop, and my wife was working with us over there, and I'm like in the back office, and she's like, hey, these 3 guys are trying to get in. Do you know these guys? And I like stick my head up, and instantly I knew what the fuck was going on. I was just like, and so like I'm like kind of like trying to play dumb, and I was like, hey guys, like we're closed right now. Like we'll be open tomorrow at noon or whatever. Come back and see us, whatever. The guy's like fucking shaking the door a little bit, and I'm like, I was like, maybe they didn't hear me. Yo, guys, we're closed right now, like blah blah blah. And the guy just like looks at me, and he's like, you know, we could kick this fucking door down right now. And I'm just like kind of looking at him for a second. He's like, if you're smart, you'll let us in. And I'm just like, ugh. And my wife like looks at me, and I was just like, go in the back, like you don't need to do anything yet. If shit gets fucking weird, make a call, whatever. And so I like kind of opened the door like a couple inches and like try to put my foot there to stop the door. And I was like, hey guy, he just like fucking shoves his way in. They come in, all 3 of them like introduce themselves to me. And the first one is like, hey, I'm whatever name, like Sergeant in Arms of the 69ers. And and then the other guy introduced himself. And they were all like very cordial with me, but very fucking like serious and stern, you know? And they were like, so what the fuck is this that you're selling shit with like our company name on it and blah, blah, blah and all this shit. And, you know, like we've all been through some shit and we've done X, Y, and Z for this, whatever. So you can't just be selling shit with our fucking whatever, blah, 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 all this, whatever. And it's just one of those moments in your life where you're like, really gonna make the right decision here, you know? I was like, you know, like I let him in, and I was, I guess, smart enough and like courteous and respectful enough to kind of let them in and have the conversation with them. And like, I don't really think they're gonna burn the store down or like murder me right now, but like, still try to like tiptoe around this situation. And I was just like literally like, you know, no disrespect, like like we didn't even know about your club, like this wasn't about you guys, it's just like a play on words, and we do X, Y, and Z, and we have this brand and whatever, blah blah blah. And I was like, yo, like we only made like a small run. We have like a handful left in the back. Like, I'll grab them. You can have them. Give them out to your boys. Like, you're fucking good. Like, no, you know, no whatever. And they just like look at me and like look at each other, and they're like, you made the right fucking decision. Took the pens and left. And I was just like, oh.
Sweating.
So yeah, I mean, we've had some funny situations, but it's like you have to just like, you know, like it's like respectfully and like in the right way, like handle the situation. You know, it's like. I don't know. That's one of the few random shit that's happened from having retail in New York for, you know, fucking 12 years.
Okay. Yeah. Takeaway. Don't mess with my biker gangs. Okay, guys? Please.
Just be respectful. That's why, like, even, like, we love, like, the lineage and the history and so many different things like that. It's just, it's like a lot of people, like at Brandon at the Bins. Like, he's nice until you step on his toes, and then, you know.
What about the, give us a little insight on the skinhead story.
So a group of like 3 or 4 of them is walking by. One of them comes in. This is that fell trigger to our old shop, which used to be like right across the street.
Oh, okay.
And the shop was awesome. It was like the first 2 quarters was retail, our own private label stuff. The third quarter was our barber shop. We had a barber shop called Heartbreakers. Really cool. Made like our own pomade, just more of that like kind of greaser type of vibe. And then our office was in the back. So it was just like a cool big space. Always had like a lot of shit going on. And so I'm chilling over there. We have a couple other people like working the store, but like I'm on the floor also. And this guy comes in, I could kind of tell he's like, you know, I don't know, he's a little drunk. He's kind of like fucking around a little bit, you know. And he comes in, and we just did a Golden Bear collab, like varsity jacket. And so we had these varsity jackets on the rack, and he comes and he picks one up, and it's like an extra small, and he like throws it on. It's like, you know, it's like, it kind of like went with his whole like whatever, because he was like in that world, you know, but like, but he throws on, it's like an extra small. He's like, how do I look? Do I look like a fucking hipster in this thing? Is it fucking cool? And I'm just like, oh my God, let me fucking diffuse this situation, right? And so again, like, you know, you just try to be like courteous and kind of like play dumb to like the ignorance, and you're just like, oh yeah, like that one's cool. Like, you know, let me get you the next size up, you know, you throw it on or whatever. And like after like a little bit of back and forth, he was like, okay, so like I'm good. And I was like, yeah, it's like, if you want to grab it, we can go to the cash register. I'll ring you out. Like, you're good, dude, whatever. He's like, no, so I'm good. And he like takes a couple steps to the door, and I like kind of like get between him and the door, and I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, I'm fucking taking the fucking jacket. I'm good. And I was like, no, bro, you're not fucking good. I was like, you can't just take the fucking jacket. And he tried to get like tough with me again and kind of like step in my face, and I had to get serious with him. You know what I mean? And I had to tell him that like, yo, I'm not just like in a calm voice too. Like, yo, I'm not just an hourly employee. Like, this is my shop. This is my business. Like, Feldtrigger is my original family name. Like, I absolutely cannot just let you take this fucking jacket right now. You're insane. And it was a little bit more like a back and forth and him like trying to be tough. And then it was just me like just saying real and respectful things, you know? And then it got to a point, and he's like, you know what? He's like, I tried to come in here and I tried to alpha dog you, and then you alpha dogged me right back. He's like, I fucking respect that shit. Yeah, he's like, come give me a hug. I was like, dude, get the fuck out of here. And he's like, what's your name? And I was like, fucking Jon Feldman, bro. I'm Jewish. This is my fucking shop. Please get the fuck out of here, you know? And so I don't know. I was like, even my whole life, I was never like a bully or like a tough guy, but I always believed in like standing up for myself and fucking, and just like having fucking conversations when you need to. But there's been some weird fucking situations. Like, there's all types of people in New York, you know? Like, yeah, it's a range. Like, I've had people come in that I thought were like fucking homeless crackheads that ended up being like celebrities that like barely fucking had any sleep from partying the night before. Like, it's such like a range of, you know, the different things you see, and the you know, the design teams or the stylists or the people looking for stuff for shows. Or like one of the crazier kind of design teams that was in here kind of recently was for New York Fashion Week a few weeks ago. We're like having a conversation. There's a few of them in here, and then it turns out it's like Kim Jones' design team from Dior and from Fendi, you know? They're like messaging me later, you know, like, oh, we told Kim about your store. We can't wait to like blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, so again, like from high end to like fucking, you know, like everyone's just looking for cool inspo and cool, you know, original reference and stuff. And so you kind of like never know what's going to happen. So like right now we're like in contract with like a Reebok project. So we're like sourcing a bunch of vintage Reebok stuff for an event that we're doing in like a week or two in the city.
Awesome.
So it's yeah, kind of like a range, but you never know what's going on.
Jon, it was a pleasure hanging out with you. Appreciate you taking me to the shop. I appreciate you showing me all the ins and outs of what's going on at this really amazing spot. We're excited to kind of stay in communication, follow up sometime in the future, and check out some of the progress that you continue to make out here. Sure. So I appreciate it, brother, man.
I was going to say, one day we'll have you guys run around with us. We'll figure out what we can find, you know.
Hey, we'll take that deal any day.
I was like, I want to do like a little, maybe a little preview of some of the personal archive that doesn't even make it in here, you know.
Episode 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.